You've heard this one several times before over the past 13 months. There's a new champion in the UFC middleweight division, and his name now is Dricus Du Plessis, who dethroned Sean Strickland by split decision in Saturday's UFC 297 headliner in Toronto. A very closely contested fight over the course of 5 rounds. A lot of arguments to be made about which round went where. It was very, very close, but in the end, 2 of the 3 judges thought Du Plessis got to 3 of 5 rounds, and he left with that title around his waist. The 4th fight in a row where the middleweight belt has changed hands. This is basically a hot potato at this point, since Israel Adesanya's first title reign, which was lengthy, came to an end by Alex Pereira, who subsequently lost to Adesanya again, who lost to Strickland, who has now lost to Du Plessis. Is there a possibility that Dricus can hold this belt and start a longer reign? That's going to remain to be seen. You could make an argument this fight should have been Strickland's, but I don't have a huge problem with the way it went. It was really that close, and Du Plessis now has some absolutely massive fights on the horizon for him, a lot of options, and it's just what direction does the UFC want to go? How quickly are we possibly going to try to turn him around? A lot of speculation of whether Du Plessis could make a quick return for UFC 300 on April 13th. That might be pushing it a little too much, given the damage he was wearing on his face and a hard fight like this. I'm sure he wants to decompress, enjoy this moment, spend time with his people, go home to South Africa and celebrate such a huge achievement for himself and his country in the sport. He's been working towards this for so long, but if the UFC is extremely eager to get him back in there, the almighty dollar ultimately pays the bill. So we'll see how desperate they are, how badly they want him in there, and the question is, who will the opponent be? Rematch talk with Strickland is something that has immediately come up after this fight. Dana White essentially dismisses that as the next move, so I don't think we're going to be seeing these two fight again immediately. It could happen sometime down the line, but just not next. That leaves either Israel Adesanya or Khamzat Chimaev as the likely candidate for the next fight, and the question is just which direction do you go with it. I think the top fight that you have to make is Du Plessis versus Adesanya. We were so close to getting that back in September, and Dricus was unable to make the date because of an injury, and we know what happened there. Strickland got the fight, won the belt, and Adesanya has since said he's taking a bit of a hiatus from the sport. It wouldn't be much if he comes back in April. He's already teasing being back to training, potentially returning to the octagon this year. So I think that's probably the most marquee matchup you can make for this division. I know the critics will say Adesanya 1-2 in his past 3 fights. He didn't defend it at all during his second reign, but come on, everything he's done during his first run in the UFC as champion, all the activities had, all the title defenses, all the big spots he's filled in. I just have a hard time seeing the UFC sitting down and saying, oh, Israel Adesanya does not deserve this opportunity. He absolutely does. If you're going to be giving Colby Covington title shots, you're going to give Sean Strickland a title shot based on where he was at the time. Adesanya is certainly worthy and deserving. And if you're looking at a secondary option, Khamzat Chimaev, I don't know how you could say he is more deserving than Israel Adesanya given his lack of work in the division. But we know what the UFC thinks of Chimaev. We know the star power and the cachet that he carries at this point. So if they threw him in there, I would not be surprised at all either. And I think that would be a huge fight for the sport as well. We've seen Du Plessis dismiss Chimaev multiple times as a worthy title contender, kind of tearing down his resume, and arguably justifiably so, given his lack of signature wins at middleweight. But given his overall body, the hype around him, I could see him being inserted into a championship fight next. But if I had to put my money on it, if I'm Du Plessis looking for the biggest paycheck, looking for the biggest spot, it would be Israel Adesanya at UFC 300. But we'll see if health is permitting, timing is permitting, all these different things that go into booking a fight on this short notice for a card like this, where Du Plessis seemingly has some leverage on his side in getting this done. So nevertheless, he is the new middleweight champion after UFC 297, and whatever fight Dricus Du Plessis gets for his first UFC title defense, it is going to be a significant one.